a massive grassroots effort to test Jonas Salk's polio vaccine more than 60 years ago, one that involved 1.8 million children. They were called polio pioneers, and they helped change the course of public health. We spoke with one of them.
Like everybody else, I've been concerned about the coronavirus and all the people dying and sick.
For James Calabrese, the fear is familiar.
Back then, children were getting polio, and on TV, you'd see them in wheelchairs and with metal braces.
It was the early 1950s, and the polio virus was widespread, causing paralysis and respiratory complications in children.
This was a time when we all worked together to beat a horrible, horrible illness. Everybody had a job to do, and as a 7-year-old, I had my job to take the vaccine, and now as a 72-year-old, my job was to stay in the house. It occurred to me that my parents' generation stopped polio. I believe my children's generation will stop the coronavirus.
Scientists around the world have been racing to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. But what happens if people refuse to take it? Anti-vaccine propaganda has long targeted immunization against childhood diseases like measles. But in the face of coronavirus, the campaign has mutated into something that could prove even more deadly.
And there is no way, as long as I'm living, that my children are going to be injected with that.
There are anti-vaccine groups that are weaving a web right now, sowing seeds of doubt, developing their plans.
Scientists say any potential vaccine is still probably a year away, but the misinformation drive is already underway. Recently, there were false reports that a volunteer in a vaccine trial died, prompting her to tweet, "She's still very much alive." Anti-vaxxers are also targeting Microsoft founder Bill Gates for his vaccine advocacy and falsely claiming microchips are being inserted into vaccines.
I have a problem receiving any vaccine from any entity, especially anybody like Bill Gates.
Scientists say our best shot at defeating COVID-19 will be mass vaccination to create herd immunity.
People have questions, but now they know where to go. For the first time ever, everyone knows CDC. They know Anthony Fauci. They'll be persuaded by science for the first time in a long time.
Researchers say the key is using this interim time to educate people, help them understand the process, how vaccines are made, and why they're safe.
What we've been seeing the last few years, and I've been writing and speaking about this, is the rise of anti-science movements in the United States, globally as well, but particularly strong now in the U.S. And it really started with the anti-vaccine movement that really gained speed in 2015, and under the banner of what some call health freedom or medical freedom, this phony concept about denying children access to life-saving vaccines just because parents are being inundated with misinformation on social media and the internet. And this has led to declines in vaccine coverage to the point where I was predicting we would start seeing measles epidemics in the US. And I wrote an article in the New York Times in 2017 called How the Anti-Vaxxers Are Winning, predicting that things are reached a point where even though we eliminated measles in 2000, we'll soon start seeing measles epidemics. And then even though we're not funded to do this, I'm a laboratory investigator developing vaccines for neglected tropical diseases and now also COVID-19. We, together with a medical student, Jackie Olive, and a couple of faculty members, we wrote to all the state health departments to get information on where kids weren't getting their vaccines for non-medical reasons. And we identified about 15 hotspots in the country where we might start seeing measles because so many kids were being denied access to vaccines. And sure enough, there it was in 2019. We had a number of measles outbreaks across the country, landing a lot of kids in the intensive care unit. It was all predicted and predictable. And now what's happened is these same anti-vaccine groups, and a lot of them come out of the far political right, the Tea Party, and they're getting support from Tea Party donors, again, under this fake concept of health freedom or medical freedom, have now tacked onto that campaigns against masks and contact tracing on social distancing, to the point now where we have a devastating COVID-19 epidemic. Deaths are still climbing. And so the question is, why is it that anti-science movements, beginning with the anti-vaccine movement, are allowed to flourish? Because that's what's happened. The anti-vaccine movement's become a full-fledged anti-science movement. And my premise is that one of the reasons is that as scientists, we're too invisible. We are too focused on our grants and papers and writing and speaking for each other, that we've lost our ability or even interest in engaging the public. And so I wrote a paper that came out earlier this year called Combating Anti-Science Movements in the 2020s. And it basically comes down to saying that we need to fix this. We need to find a way to get scientists more involved in speaking to the public, feeling comfortable talking to the public,